What's up, everybody? It's Carpo here. This video is about a subject that I really don't even want to talk about, but I feel like it's imperative. It's kind of like many of the conspiracy-oriented subjects. The minute you bring it up, everybody thinks you're either well, everybody's got their own opinions, but opinions don't really matter when it comes to facts. And unfortunately, today facts don't seem to matter to anybody either. But the anti-vaxxer movement, or the anti-vaccination movement, if you want to call it that, whatever, was declared by the World Health Organization to be one of the top 10 threats to human health. And I think it was in 2018, or maybe it's this year, I'm not sure. And of course, a lot of the people who are opposed to vaccinations are, up in arms saying, oh, look, they're just trying to make us look bad, and vaccines kill, and they cause autism, and all this shit. I'm just going to say this. When I was, my two youngest kids, who are 6 and 9, when they were young, I said I had to decide whether or not to vaccinate them. And 9 years ago, I was at a kind of a conspiracy-oriented mindset at that point, where I believed that vaccines could cause illness. I was on the fence about the autism thing, because I'd done my research. I realized that it was Jim Carrey and Jenny McCarthy who were spreading that, and they were doing it based on a doctor's report, which had been proven to be false since then, and that he had been paid by a company to say as much. So there was a lot of dispute in the air at that point, and there still is today. But I decided to get my kids vaccinated because I figured my research is just as good as anybody else's. And I'm not going to let some guy on YouTube tell me not to vaccinate my children because it might kill them, when I can have, doctors and scientists over here and historical evidence that these diseases have actually killed a lot of people. And I'm not going to say I made the right or the wrong decision. I'm going to say I made the best decision I thought of at the time for me and my family. Well, fast forward now. This week in Clark County, Washington, which is where I live, there has been a measles outbreak, which the other day it was to 19 people, and then somebody went to a Blazers game, and they're really worried that it may have spread to a lot of people. But right now there's 23 confirmed cases in my county. All of them, as far as they know, are unvaccinated, and almost all of them are children, and one of them's in the hospital. And so we take this small sample size and we compare it to the dangers of the vaccine itself. The numbers are just numbers. I was going to go through and read off the numbers, but they really don't matter. People who are against vaccines are against vaccines regardless. My thought is this. There have been somewhere, well over 100,000 documented cases of adverse effects from these the MMR virus, MMR vaccine. And even Merck themselves, who manufacture it, say that you shouldn't give it with other vaccines at the same time, like the varicella vaccine. And I was kind of wary about this, because you go into the doctor and they say, oh, do you want to get all the kids' vaccines today, just get it over with. My wife and I talked about it, and we chose for both of our kids to spread out the vaccines. No, we'll get this one this time, we'll get another one the next time. It's worth it for us to take more than one trip to be safe, just in case. Because introducing a bunch of, foreign viruses, whether they're alive or not, into a kid, of course there's chances that it can cause problems and there can be adverse effects. The big question is this. Are there people purposefully trying to kill us off through vaccines? Because there are a lot of people who believe that. And I think that's just absurd nonsense. Okay, now, are there side effects to vaccines that may be obscured or covered up? Sure, that I can completely agree with. And maybe could the vaccine in some cases be more dangerous than the disease? Well, I'm guessing that if a person has a strong adverse reaction to the vaccine, then they would likely have a stronger adverse reaction to the disease itself. And according to I think it was the World Health Organization or the CDC, in the past, since the year 2000 up until 2017, they've prevented 21.5 million cases, 21.5 million deaths from measles. And it's interesting because we don't think much about it today. But I believe it was, just last year, there was something like 87,000 deaths worldwide. And most of them are in Africa. And when we live in the developing country, to us, a vaccine is like, oh, well, we don't need it. You know, I don't need a vaccine. And the anti-vaxxers who say, oh, well, we haven't seen those diseases in a long time. I've looked at the statistics. Yes, measles was already on the decline before the vaccine was invented. But if you look at the right chart and you see the drop-off in affected cases and hospitalizations, you can see that clearly vaccines are effective and useful, and that there is a dark side to it, and that there are adverse effects that people will have. Some people will have. We have to look at actually how many people compared to how many are saved. I'm not going to change anybody's mind if they're against vaccines, because I know that, you know, most people are pretty stuck in their ways. But my mind was changed. So at least I can put the idea out there and say, you know, think for yourself. Don't just believe somebody because they're screaming their kid got autism from a vaccine. It is possible. It is still possible that autism and maybe other, you know, spectrum disorders could be perhaps perpetuated or caused by this. It's just like when a person who takes psychedelics, they say if a person becomes schizophrenic, it's not the psychedelics, it's that they already were predisposed to this and that it activated that. We don't know as much about the body and the mind as we'd like to know. But we have to get away from these single cases here and there and really look at the big picture. I'm just going to leave it there. I believe that the vaccines save lives. I really do. And that it's families like ours that keep families like theirs, the unvaccinated kids, from getting sick. And now we've had several outbreaks. There was one recently, I think, in Illinois. Lots around the country. We had one a couple years ago down in just down southern Oregon down there. And I had a friend that lived down there, and I think it was Ashland. It's a kind of a hippie-ish community, and a lot of parents don't vaccinate and opted out, and they had a major outbreak. And when they do, all the kids who are not vaccinated have to stay home. And, you know, it's a tough one, because I don't blame people for not wanting to vaccinate their kids. They say, why should I give them this disease that they might not ever get? And that is a tough choice. I would like to say before I go that I'm not saying that all vaccines are safe. I personally would never get a flu vaccine. And I know that that's the most common vaccine that people get every year. But knowing that the efficacy rate is lower for that because of the variability within the disease itself, within the virus itself, the flu virus is always morphing. So you may or may not get it, but some people believe you can still spread the flu with the shot, and it's, you know, it's just the flu, for goodness sake. It's different from a disease that might cause encephalitis, brain swelling, and lifelong problems. So I guess I'd like to say let's just look at this rationally and reasonably and say, yes, vaccines do save lives, and yes, there are side effects for some people, and we need to work out the details and stop being so ignorant about this, you know, thinking that we're better parents for not vaccinating our kids. Because if your kid decides he wants to travel to another country, he might want some of those vaccines. And so, you know, every parent's decision is theirs to make. I'm just presenting my side of the case and how I feel about it. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light for someone, and you're not a bad parent for giving your kid a shot that might prevent a disease. But I wish you all well. Whatever you decide to do, hopefully, you know, the kids are the future. We're growing up in a different world, you know, where we're living longer lives, and yeah, it's a crazy life. Talk to y'all later.